The starship Vanguard moved silently through deep space. Outside the ship, millions of stars shined against the endless darkness. Everything seemed peaceful. Then suddenly, everything changed. A loud warning alarm exploded through the corridors. Red emergency lights flashed across every deck. The floor shook violently. Crew members were thrown against walls. Some fell to the ground. Others grabbed anything they could to stay standing. Nobody understood what had happened. On the bridge, Captain Rollick stared at the main screen. His 4 blue eyes widened with fear. An unknown energy wave had appeared from nowhere. It had struck the ship directly. Systems across the vessel were shutting down one after another. "Damage report," the captain shouted. Officers rushed to their stations. "The engine core is unstable. We lost long-range communication. Power failures on decks 3 and 4. The reports came faster every second. Then another message arrived. This one made the bridge go silent. "Medical emergency in engineering." The captain immediately turned toward the screen. "What happened?" The answer came quickly. "Senior Engineer Varek has collapsed." Captain Rollick's face became serious. Varek was one of the ship's most important crew members. If anything happened to him, repairs of the damaged vessel will become much harder. "Take me to the medical bay," the captain ordered. Meanwhile, deep inside the ship, chaos filled the medical center. Doctors rushed from room to room. In the center of the emergency ward lay Varek. The large, gray-skinned engineer was completely motionless. His body showed no reaction, no movement, no breathing, nothing. A team of alien doctors surrounded him. Advanced medical machines scanned every part of his body. Bright blue lights flashed across the room. The chief doctor, Selka, studied the readings carefully. Her expression became darker every second. Heart activity? One assistant checked the monitor. None. Nervous system? No response. Brain activity? The assistant looked down, then slowly shook his head. Nothing. The room became silent. Everyone knew what those words meant. Still, Dr. Selka refused to quit. "Prepare a neurostimulator." The machine was brought immediately. Electric pulses were sent through Varek's body. Nothing happened. Increased power. The doctors obeyed. Again, nothing. No heartbeat. No movement. No sign of life. Sweat formed on Selka's forehead. This made no sense. The energy wave had damaged many crew members, but it should not have killed someone instantly. Yet every scan showed the same result. Varek was gone. Still, the doctors continued. Advanced medicines entered his bloodstream. Healing fields surrounded his body. Cellular repair systems worked at maximum strength. The most advanced medical technology in the Galactic Alliance was being used. But nothing changed. Minute after minute passed. The room slowly filled with despair. Outside the emergency ward, crew members gathered. They waited nervously. Many of them knew Varek personally. He was respected across the ship. Some called him stubborn. Others called him a genius. But everyone liked him. Nobody wanted to hear bad news. Among those waiting stood a human medic named Ethan Carter. Unlike the others, Ethan remained quiet. His eyes stayed fixed on the closed medical doors. He had only joined the ship 6 months earlier. Many crew members still viewed humans as newcomers to the galaxy. Most alien species considered human medicine primitive compared to Alliance technology. Ethan had heard those opinions many times. He never argued. He simply did his job. Now, he stood silently while the minutes passed. Something about the situation felt strange. Very strange. Then the doors opened. Dr. Selka stepped outside. The worried crew members immediately surrounded her. Nobody needed to ask the question. Her face already held the answer. "We did everything we could," she said quietly. The corridor became completely silent. Some crew members lowered their heads. Others looked away. A few simply stared at the floor. Dr. Selka took a deep breath. "Engineer Varek has been clinically dead for 3 minutes." The words hit everyone like a physical blow. 3 minutes. Not 30 seconds. Not 1 minute. 3 full minutes. In Alliance medicine, nobody returned after that. Nobody. The official time of death was entered into the ship's records. For many species, the matter was finished. Death was final. The captain arrived moments later. His expression became heavy as he received the report. "Are you certain?" he asked. Dr. Selka nodded. "We used every available procedure." The captain closed his eyes briefly. The loss would be felt across the entire ship. As everyone stood in silence, Ethan looked toward the medical room. Something inside him refused to accept it. 3 minutes. Back on Earth, he had seen people survive longer. Much longer. Not often, but it happened. His training told him one important thing. Never assume. Not until every possibility was gone. Slowly, Ethan stepped forward. Dr. Selka noticed him immediately. "Medic Carter?" The human looked toward her. "May I see him?" The doctors exchanged confused looks. Selka frowned. "Why?" Ethan hesitated for a moment, then answered honestly, "Because I think there may still be a chance." The corridor fell silent again. Several crew members stared at him. Some looked shocked. Others looked almost offended. Dr. Selka's eyes narrowed. "A chance," she repeated. "He's been dead for 3 minutes." Ethan nodded. "I know." The chief doctor crossed her arms. "Our equipment confirms total cardiac failure." "I know." "No brain activity." "I know." "We've exhausted every treatment available." Ethan looked directly at her. "Maybe not every treatment." The doctors exchanged puzzled glances. The captain studied the human carefully. "What are you suggesting?" Ethan took a slow breath. He knew what would happen next. They would think he was crazy, primitive, desperate, but none of that mattered, not if there was even the smallest chance. Finally, he spoke. "I want to try an old human emergency procedure." The room became completely silent. Nobody understood what he meant. Dr. Selka stared at him. "Human procedure?" Ethan nodded. "Yes." The chief doctor looked almost confused. "What kind of procedure?" For the first time, Ethan looked toward the closed medical room doors. Then he gave his answer, a simple answer, one that would soon shock the entire galaxy. "I want to restart his heart with my hands." The corridor remained silent after Ethan spoke. Nobody moved. Nobody said a word. For a moment, it felt as if time itself had stopped. Then Dr. Selka blinked. "You want to do what?" Ethan remained calm. "I want to restart his heart, manually." Several doctors stared at him in disbelief. One young medical officer actually laughed. "That's impossible." Another shook his head. "The heart has stopped. Biological activity is gone." Ethan looked at them. Maybe. The answer confused them. Maybe. Medical science did not work on maybe. Something either worked or it didn't. Dr. Selka folded her arms. "You honestly believe pressing on his chest will revive him?" Ethan nodded. "It has happened before." The room erupted into whispers. The alien doctors exchanged worried looks. The captain watched quietly. Every instinct told him this was foolish. Yet something about the human's confidence made him hesitate. Finally, he stepped forward. "If there is even a small chance." Dr. Selka turned toward him. "Captain, Alliance law is clear. The patient has already been declared deceased." "I know." "Then why continue?" The captain looked through the medical bay window at Varric's motionless body. "Because dead crew members do not usually have humans arguing with entire medical teams." A few crew members smiled nervously. Dr. Selka sighed. She clearly disagreed, but she also knew there was nothing left to lose. At last, she stepped aside. "You have 5 minutes." Ethan immediately entered the room. The doors closed behind him. Inside the medical bay, the atmosphere felt heavy. Machines hummed softly. Blue lights flashed across inactive screens. Varric lay completely still. His gray skin looked pale. His eyes were closed. No breathing. No pulse. No sign of life. Most people would have given up. Ethan didn't. He walked to the bedside and removed his gloves. The alien doctors gathered nearby. They watched closely, some out of curiosity, others expecting failure. Ethan ignored them all. He placed one hand over the other, then positioned them in the center of Varric's chest. Several doctors exchanged confused looks. "What is he doing?" "I don't know. It looks ridiculous." Ethan took a deep breath. Then he began. Press, press, press. His arms moved with steady rhythm. The room echoed with the sound. Press, press, press. Nothing happened. The monitors remained silent. No heartbeat, no pulse, no movement. One doctor shook his head. This is pointless. Another nodded. Completely primitive. Ethan continued anyway. Sweat slowly formed on his forehead. His muscles strained with every compression. He remembered his training back on Earth. He remembered the instructors repeating the same lesson. Never stop too early. People have survived because someone refused to quit. Press, press, press. The rhythm never changed. Outside the room, more crew members gathered. Word was spreading through the ship. A human was attempting to revive a dead crewman. Nobody could believe it. Some came out of curiosity. Others came because they desperately wanted hope. Inside the medical bay, 2 minutes passed, then 3, still nothing. The alien doctors grew impatient. Dr. Selka glanced at the timer. Her expression hardened. Enough. Ethan didn't stop. Medic Carter. Still he continued. The captain stepped closer. Ethan. The human finally looked up. His face was covered in sweat. I need more time. Dr. Selka shook her head. There is no point. Ethan looked back at Varric, then at the monitor, then back at the doctors. There is always a point. The room became silent again. Nobody knew how to answer, because despite the hopeless situation, Ethan still believed. And belief was strangely powerful. He continued. Press, press, press. His arms burned. His shoulders ached. His breathing became heavier. Still he refused to stop. Then suddenly, a sound broke the silence. Beep. Everyone froze. Ethan stopped moving for a split second. Dr. Selka looked toward the monitor. The screen had flashed. Only once. The room stared. Nobody spoke. Nobody breathed. One doctor quickly checked equipment. System error? Another doctor examined the readings. No. The first doctor frowned. What do you mean, no? Before anyone could answer, beep, the sound came again, louder this time. The monitor displayed a tiny electrical spike. The room exploded into movement. Doctors rushed toward the screens. Assistants checked every sensor. Nobody could believe what they were seeing. A weak signal. Tiny. Almost invisible. But real. Dr. Selka's eyes widened. That's impossible. The monitor beeped again. A little stronger. Ethan immediately resumed compressions. His heart pounded with excitement. Maybe, just maybe, the body wasn't completely gone. The captain stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. What's happening? Nobody answered immediately, because nobody truly knew. The signal continued appearing, weak, unstable, but present. For the first time since the accident, hope entered the room. Then Varric's hand moved. Only a small twitch, almost impossible to notice, but everyone saw it. One assistant gasped. Another nearly dropped the scanner. Dr. Selka rushed to the bedside, checked neural activity. Medical scans flooded the screens. Numbers began appearing. Tiny readings, small responses, but responses nonetheless. The room was entering territory no doctor had ever witnessed before. Everything they knew said this should not be possible. Yet it was happening directly in front of them. Ethan continued compressions. His arms felt like stone, but he ignored the pain. Every second mattered. The monitor suddenly released another beep, then another, then another. A slow rhythm began forming. Weak, irregular, but unmistakable. A heartbeat. The captain stared at the screen. The doctors stared at the screen. Even Ethan froze for a moment, because after 3 minutes of death, after every advanced treatment had failed, after the patient had been declared gone, the impossible was happening. Varric's heart was trying to beat again. Nobody spoke. Nobody dared. The entire medical bay watched the monitor. Each beep sounded louder than the last. Each heartbeat shattered another rule of galactic medicine. And deep inside the ship, as alarms continued flashing from the earlier disaster, a miracle was beginning. A miracle powered not by advanced technology, not by alien science, but by an ancient human technique that most of the galaxy considered primitive. The monitor beeped again, stronger this time, and suddenly everyone realized something terrifying. If the humans succeeded, everything they believed about death might be wrong. The medical bay stood frozen. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Every eye was locked on the monitor. Beep. The sound echoed through the room. A weak heartbeat. Small, unstable, but real. Dr. Selka stared at the screen as if it had betrayed her. Her entire career told her this should not be happening. The laws of biology said it was impossible. The laws of medicine said it was impossible. The laws of the Galactic Alliance said it was impossible. Yet the monitor continued to disagree. Beep. Another heartbeat. Stronger than before. The captain slowly stepped closer. Tell me what I'm seeing. No one answered immediately. The doctors were too shocked. Finally, one assistant swallowed hard. Heart activity is increasing. The captain frowned. Increasing? Yes, Captain. The assistant looked at the readings again, then checked them a second time, then a third. His hands started shaking. The signal is getting stronger. A wave of whispers spread through the room. Ethan remained focused. He continued pressing on Varric's chest. His arms felt heavy. Every muscle burned. But he couldn't stop now. Not when the impossible was finally happening. Dr. Selka suddenly snapped into action. Prepare emergency stabilization equipment. The medical staff immediately moved. Shock had been replaced by urgency. Machines rolled across the room. Monitors activated. Scanners powered up. For the first time since Varric collapsed, the doctors were fighting to save a living patient instead of studying a dead one. Ethan continued. Press, press, press. Then, Varric's chest suddenly jerked. The movement was small, but everyone saw it. Several crew members gasped. A nurse nearly dropped her scanner. Dr. Selka rushed closer. Did he move? He moved. No. Yes. The room erupted into confusion. Then it happened again, this time stronger. Varric's body twitched. His fingers curled. His chest lifted slightly. And suddenly, gasp! A sharp breath exploded from his lungs. The entire room froze. The sound seemed impossible. A dead man had just taken a breath. Captain Rollick's eyes widened. One doctor actually stumbled backward. Another sat down in complete disbelief. Ethan immediately stopped compressions. Everyone stared at Varric, waiting, watching, hoping. The engineer remained motionless for several seconds. Then, gasp! Another breath, stronger this time. Dr. Selka rushed forward. He's breathing. The room exploded into activity. Doctors surrounded the bed. Medical scanners flooded the air with light. Numbers appeared across every screen. Heart rate, blood pressure, neural activity. Everything was returning, slowly, but undeniably. Varric was alive. No one could explain it. No one understood it. But the evidence stood directly in front of them. The engineer who had been declared dead was breathing again. Ethan finally stepped back. His legs nearly collapsed beneath him. Hours of stress suddenly crashed into him. The captain grabbed his shoulder. You did it! Ethan shook his head. Not yet. The human pointed toward the medical team. They still have work to do. Dr. Selka glanced toward him. For a moment she simply stared. Then she gave a small nod. It wasn't much, but for someone like her, it meant everything. The chief doctor had just acknowledged that the human had been right. Hours passed. The entire ship waited. Nobody left their stations. Nobody relaxed. News spread through every deck. A crewman declared dead had returned to life. Some believed it. Others didn't. Rumors raced through the ship faster than any official report. By the time evening arrived, nearly everyone aboard was talking about Ethan Carter, the human medic, the man who refused to quit, the man who challenged death itself. Inside the intensive care unit, Varric remained unconscious, but his condition continued improving. His heartbeat stabilized. His breathing strengthened. Brain activity returned to normal levels. Every scan brought more good news. Every result created more questions. Dr. Selka reviewed the data repeatedly. The numbers never changed. no matter how many times she checked. Finally, one of her assistants approached. "What do you think happened?" Selka remained silent for a long moment. Then she sighed. "I don't know." The answer shocked the assistant. Doctors hated saying those words, especially chief doctors. But this situation had shattered everything she thought she knew. Hours later, the captain entered the observation room. Ethan stood near the glass window. He looked exhausted. Dark circles sat beneath his eyes. Still, he refused to leave. The captain joined him. Together, they watched the sleeping engineer. "You knew this could work?" the captain asked. Ethan shook his head. "No." The captain looked surprised. "No. I hoped." The captain considered that. "You risked everything based on hope?" Ethan smiled slightly. "Sometimes hope is enough." The alien captain looked through the glass. For the first time, he began understanding humans a little better. Maybe that was their real strength. Not technology, not intelligence, not physical power. Hope, the strange ability to keep fighting when everyone else had already surrendered. Then suddenly, a voice echoed through the room. Weak, barely audible, but real. Everyone turned. Inside the intensive care unit, Varick's eyes were opening. Doctors rushed forward. Monitors beeped rapidly. The engineer blinked several times. His vision struggled to focus. The room appeared blurry, confusing, strange. Then he noticed the faces surrounding him. The captain, the doctors, the nurses. Everyone looked stunned. Varick spoke slowly. "What happened?" The room went silent. Nobody knew how to answer, because the truth sounded impossible. Finally, Dr. Selka stepped forward. "You died." Varick stared at her. "What?" "You were dead." The engineer laughed weakly. "That's not funny." Nobody laughed. The smile slowly disappeared from Varick's face. Then he noticed their expressions. The fear, the confusion, the disbelief. They weren't joking. His eyes widened. "What do you mean?" Dr. Selka looked toward Ethan. Every eye in the room followed. Varick turned his head. For the first time, he saw the human medic standing near the doorway. Confused, he looked back at the doctors, then back at Ethan. "What happened?" Nobody answered immediately, because the answer would change far more than one life. It would change medicine across the galaxy. And somewhere far beyond the vanguard, powerful people were already hearing whispers about the impossible event. An impossible event they would not ignore, because a dead man had just come back to life, and the galaxy wanted answers. The news left the vanguard within hours. At first, nobody believed it. A dead crewman had returned to life after a human performed a primitive medical procedure? The story sounded ridiculous. Yet the medical records were real. The sensor logs were real. The witnesses were real. And most importantly, Varick was alive. Across nearby Alliance systems, the story spread like wildfire. Medical centers discussed it. Scientists argued about it. Doctors questioned it. Some called it a miracle. Others called it a mistake. A few even called it a lie. 3 days later, a sleek Silver Alliance vessel arrived beside the Vanguard. Its arrival made the crew nervous, because this was no ordinary ship. It carried investigators from the Galactic Medical Council, the highest medical authority in known space. They had come for answers, and they were not happy. Inside the main conference chamber, Captain Rollick sat across from a group of stern-faced officials. At the center sat Council Director Nethar, an elderly alien famous for writing many of the Alliance's medical laws. His sharp eyes scanned the room. "You understand the seriousness of this matter?" Captain Rollick nodded. "Yes." Nethar activated a hologram. Medical records floated above the table. Varick's death certificate appeared first, then the scans, then the monitor logs, then the revival data. The room remained silent. The evidence was impossible to ignore. Finally, Nethar looked toward Ethan. The human sat quietly at the far end of the table. "You are Medic Ethan Carter?" "Yes." The director folded his hands. "You claim this revival was achieved through manual chest compressions?" "Yes." "Without advanced technology?" "Correct." Several council members exchanged uneasy looks. One of them leaned forward. "Do humans regularly perform such procedures?" Ethan nodded. For centuries. The room became silent. For centuries? Another investigator repeated. Yes. The council members looked stunned. They expected a recent experimental treatment, not something ancient, not something humans had practiced before joining the galaxy. Director Nethar frowned. Explain. Ethan activated a display. An image of a human heart appeared. This procedure is called cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR. The strange words echoed through the room. Most had never heard them before. Ethan continued. When the heart stops, oxygen stops reaching the brain. The hologram shifted. Images showed blood circulation. Chest compressions manually move blood to the body until the heart can recover. One council member looked confused. You physically replace the heart? For a short time, yes. Several officials stared at him. The idea sounded insane, primitive, crude, yet the evidence sat directly in front of them. A living engineer named Varric. Director Nethar rubbed his forehead. How many human lives has this technique saved? Ethan thought for a moment. Millions. The room exploded into whispers. Millions? That number sounded impossible. One investigator immediately checked the human database. His eyes widened. The records confirm it. Silence returned. For the first time, genuine concern appeared on the council's faces. If this was true, then humanity possessed medical knowledge that had been ignored for decades. Knowledge capable of saving lives. Knowledge the Alliance never considered important. That realization frightened them. Meanwhile, Varric continued recovering. His strength returned faster every day. Yet something strange bothered him. Everywhere he went, people stared. Crew members stopped talking when he entered rooms. Scientists requested interviews. Reporters sent messages nonstop. He felt less like a person and more like a mystery. One evening, he finally visited Ethan. The human sat alone in the observation lounge. Outside the large windows, stars drifted silently past. Varric approached slowly. You saved me. Ethan looked up. A small smile appeared. Looks like it. Varric sat beside him. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then the engineer asked the question everyone wanted answered. Why didn't you quit? Ethan looked out the window. The stars reflected in the glass. Because I wasn't sure you were gone. The answer seemed too simple. Varric frowned. Every doctor said I was dead. I know. Every machine said I was dead. I know. Then why keep trying? Ethan thought carefully. Finally he answered. Because sometimes machines stop believing before humans do. Varric stared at him. The word stayed in his mind. Machines stop believing before humans do. No advanced equation. No complex theory. Just faith. Simple human faith. For the first time, Varric understood why humans fascinated the galaxy. Back on the investigation ship, tension was growing. The Council had discovered something unexpected. Human medical records. Thousands of years of them. As researchers examined the data, disturbing patterns emerged. Again and again, humans survived situations considered impossible by Alliance standards. Cardiac arrest, traumatic injuries, near drowning, extreme blood loss. Humans had developed countless emergency methods long before advanced technology existed. Not because they wanted to, because they had no choice. Earth had been a dangerous world. Humans learned to fight death with whatever tools they possessed, and those lessons remained valuable even after reaching the stars. Director Nethar stared at the reports. The implications were enormous. Entire medical textbooks might require rewriting. Training programs might need changing. Alliance doctors might have been giving up too early for centuries. The thought terrified him, not because it proved humans were smarter, because it proved the Alliance had overlooked something important. Then a new emergency arrived. A transmission burst into the investigation vessel. An orbital mining station had suffered a catastrophic explosion. Hundreds were injured. Medical systems were damaged. Power was failing. Rescue teams were overwhelmed. The room immediately shifted into crisis mode. Director Nethar read the report. Then his expression changed. The station's advanced medical equipment was offline. Without those systems, survival rates would plummet. Many victims would die before help arrived. Silence filled the room. Everyone knew it. Then one council member slowly looked toward Ethan's file. Others followed. Nobody said a word, yet they were all thinking the same thing. For the first time in history, the Galactic Medical Council needed human knowledge, and hundreds of lives now depended on it. The emergency transmission echoed across the conference room. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The holographic display showed images from the mining station. Fires burned through several sections. Emergency lights flashed red. Smoke filled the corridors. Damaged workers lay everywhere. Some were trapped under debris. Others waited for medical help that wasn't coming fast enough. The station's name was Orion 7. It floated near the edge of Alliance territory. Nearly 800 workers lived there. Now hundreds were injured, and the situation was getting worse every minute. Director Nethar looked around the room. The station's medical systems are destroyed. One council member lowered his head. Without them, survival rates will collapse. Another scientist studied the incoming reports. Many victims have stopped breathing. We are also seeing severe blood loss, multiple crush injuries. The room grew darker. These were exactly the emergencies Alliance doctors hated. Their medicine depended heavily on advanced technology. Without those machines, many treatments became impossible. For years, they had trusted technology to solve everything. Now technology was gone, and hundreds of lives hung in the balance. Finally, Director Nethar looked at Ethan. The human immediately understood. "You want me to help?" The director nodded. "We need every advantage available." For the first time since the investigation began, nobody questioned human medicine. Nobody laughed. Nobody called it primitive, because people were dying, and survival mattered more than pride. Hours later, rescue ships raced toward Orion 7. Inside one of them, Ethan stood before dozens of doctors. Aliens from 6 different species filled the briefing room. All were trained professionals. All were nervous. Ethan activated a holographic display. "If the station's medical systems are offline, we need to use basic emergency methods." The doctors listened carefully. No one interrupted. No one argued. For the first time, the galaxy's experts were students, and the human was the teacher. Ethan displayed an image. "This is CPR." Many doctors recognized the procedure now. The story of Varek had spread everywhere, but knowing about it and performing it were very different things. Ethan demonstrated hand placement, compression rhythm, emergency breathing techniques. Then he taught bleeding control, pressure bandages, tourniquets, emergency stabilization, simple methods, old methods, methods humans had used long before they traveled among the stars. At first, some doctors seemed uncertain. The techniques looked too basic, too easy, yet the evidence said otherwise. And right now, evidence mattered more than appearances. 3 hours later, the rescue fleet arrived. The sight was horrifying. Entire sections of Orion 7 were blackened by explosions. Large pieces of metal floated through space. Several docking bays had been destroyed. Emergency crews rushed inside immediately. The first corridor looked like a battlefield. Injured workers filled every corner. Medical alarms echoed endlessly. Smoke drifted through damaged hallways. Panic spread among survivors. Ethan quickly took command of one rescue sector. We divide the injured into groups. Nearby doctors looked confused. What groups? The ones who need immediate help. The ones who can wait. The ones who can walk. Several doctors exchanged surprised looks. This system was unfamiliar. Humans called it TRIA. The Alliance had no equivalent. They usually treated patients individually with advanced scanners. But there wasn't enough time for that now. Not with hundreds injured. Ethan pointed toward the nearest victims. We saved the most lives first. The doctors immediately got to work. Minutes later, chaos filled the station. Rescue teams moved through damaged corridors. Doctors treated injuries wherever they found them. Again and again, human techniques proved useful. A worker stopped breathing. CPR restarted his heart. Another suffered severe bleeding. Pressure bandages saved her life. A third became trapped beneath heavy machinery. Human emergency stabilization kept them alive until rescue crews arrived. Everywhere Ethan looked, people were surviving, not because of advanced technology, but because somebody refused to wait for perfect conditions. Human medicine was designed for disasters. Earth had taught humanity harsh lessons. Wars, accidents, natural disasters. For thousands of years, humans learned how to save lives during chaos. Now, those lessons were saving aliens. Several hours into the rescue mission, a terrifying message arrived. A reactor section deep inside the station was becoming unstable. If it exploded, everyone nearby would die. Rescue crews immediately began evacuating. But one problem remained. 20 injured workers were trapped inside the danger zone. Many doctors wanted to retreat. The risk was enormous. The reactor could explode at any moment. Then Ethan stepped forward. "We're going in." Several officers stared at him. "Are you serious? We may not have enough time. It could kill us." Ethan looked toward the reactor corridor, then toward the trapped workers. "They don't have enough time either." Without another word, he grabbed medical equipment and moved forward. For a moment, nobody followed. Then something unexpected happened. One doctor stepped beside him, then another, then another. Soon an entire rescue team joined the human, not because they were ordered, because they believed him. The race through the reactor sector became a battle against time. Warning sirens screamed. Heat filled the air. Damaged pipes burst around them. Every minute brought new danger. Yet the team continued. One by one, they reached the trapped workers. Emergency treatment began immediately. The injured were stabilized, carried to safety, moved through collapsing corridors. The final evacuation shuttle departed only seconds before part of the reactor chamber exploded. The shock wave shook the entire station. Everyone watched from a safe distance. Silence followed. Then cheers erupted. All 20 workers had survived. Every single one. 2 days later, rescue operations finally ended. The final numbers shocked the galaxy. Medical analysts reviewed the data repeatedly. At first, they assumed there had been a mistake. But there wasn't. Survival rates at Orion 7 were far higher than expected. Hundreds of lives have been saved. And one fact appeared again and again throughout every report. Human emergency procedures. CPR, triage, bleeding control, rapid stabilization. Simple methods once dismissed as primitive. Methods that had become the difference between life and death. Across the galaxy, doctors began paying attention. Medical schools requested human training materials. Research centers demanded copies of Earth's emergency manuals. For the first time, humanity was changing galactic medicine. But something even bigger was coming, because the Galactic Medical Council had reached a decision that would be announced before the entire galaxy, a decision that would permanently change humanity's place among the stars. 3 weeks after the Orion 7 disaster, the largest medical conference in galactic history was held on the capital world of the Alliance. Never before had so many scientists, doctors, military leaders, and government officials gathered in one place. Millions watched through live broadcasts. Billions followed the event across thousands of star systems. Everyone wanted to hear the same thing. How had a human medic changed everything? Inside the enormous Grand Medical Hall, rows of seats stretched toward the horizon. Floating holograms displayed medical discoveries from hundreds of species. At the center stood a massive stage. Today, one subject overshadowed every other achievement. Humanity. More specifically, one human named Ethan Carter. Ethan sat quietly near the back of the hall. He felt completely out of place. Around him sat famous researchers and celebrated doctors. Many had spent centuries advancing medical science. Compared to them, he was just an emergency medic from Earth. Yet somehow, everyone kept looking at him. The attention made him uncomfortable. He never wanted fame. He only wanted to save a life. Then the lights dimmed. The hall became silent. Director Nethar stepped onto the stage. The same director who had once doubted Ethan now stood before the entire galaxy. A giant holographic screen appeared behind him. Images from a vanguard filled the air. Then images from Orion 7. The audience watched carefully. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Nethar took a deep breath. For centuries, he began, the Galactic Alliance believed its medical knowledge represented the highest level of scientific understanding. The audience nodded. Everyone knew this. It was accepted as fact. We believed advanced technology could solve every problem. The images shifted. Destroyed medical equipment appeared. Broken scanners. Damaged healing chambers. Failed systems. Then Nethar continued. And because of that belief, we stopped asking an important question. The hall remained silent. What happens when the technology fails? The question hung in the air. No one answered, because everyone already knew. The Orion 7 disaster had exposed the truth. Technology could fail. Power could fail. Machines could fail. But emergencies never waited. Lives still needed saving. Nethar activated another display. This time it showed ancient human medical records. Simple diagrams. Old emergency procedures. Techniques thousands of years old. Some were older than many galactic civilizations. We dismissed these methods because they appeared primitive. The audience watched quietly. That was our mistake. A ripple of whispers spread through the hall. Nethar rarely admitted mistakes. Today, he was admitting one before the entire galaxy. The screen changed again. Now it displayed one number, 487. The audience looked confused. Nethar pointed toward it. This represents a number of lives directly saved during the Orion 7 disaster through human emergency procedures. The room became silent. Many had heard estimates. Few expected the real number to be so high. Nearly 500 lives, saved without advanced medical systems, saved through knowledge, training, determination, and hope. The screen changed once more. Now Varric appeared. The engineer stood healthy and strong. Nothing about him suggested he had once been dead. The audience immediately recognized him. His story had become famous across the galaxy. Nethar looked toward the crowd. 3 months ago, this individual was declared deceased. The giant display showed Varric lying motionless in the medical bay. Many viewers shifted uncomfortably. They knew what came next. 3 minutes without life signs. The image froze. A timer appeared. 3 minutes. To most species, that number meant the end. Then the screen changed again. It showed Ethan performing CPR. The same simple procedure. The same desperate effort. The same impossible gamble. The audience watched in complete silence. Even after seeing it dozens of times, the footage remained powerful, because everyone knew how impossible it should have been. Then came the monitor, the first heartbeat, the first signal, the first proof. A living man standing where a dead man should have been. Nethar turned toward the audience. History will remember this moment. Nobody disagreed, because history had already begun changing. After presentation ended, Nethar announced the council's final decision. The entire hall waited. Millions of viewers leaned closer to their screens. The director activated a Golden Alliance seal above the stage. Its light filled the chamber. Then he spoke. Effective immediately, human emergency medicine will become part of standard medical education throughout the Galactic Alliance. The hall exploded. Applause echoed from every direction. Doctors stood from their seats. Scientists cheered. Even military officers joined in. The decision was unprecedented. Never before had one species influenced Alliance medicine so dramatically. Yet nobody could deny the evidence. Humanity had earned its place. But Nethar wasn't finished. He raised one hand. The room slowly quieted. Then he revealed a second announcement, one nobody expected. The Galactic Medical Council has also approved the creation of a new institution. Curiosity spread through the audience. A new institution? The hologram changed. Large silver letters appeared above the stage. The Human Emergency Response Academy. Gasps filled the hall. The academy would train doctors from every known species. Human methods. Human emergency procedures. Human rescue strategies. Everything once considered primitive. Everything now considered essential. The audience erupted again. This time even louder. Later that evening, after the celebrations ended, Ethan finally escaped the crowds. He stood alone on a balcony overlooking the city. Thousands of lights stretched across the horizon. Air traffic flowed between giant towers. The galaxy seemed peaceful. For the first time in months, everything felt quiet. Footsteps approached behind him. Ethan turned. Varric stood there. The engineer smiled. "You keep disappearing." Ethan laughed. "Too many people." "Understandable." The two friends looked out across the city. Neither spoke for a while. Finally, Varric broke the silence. "You changed a galaxy." Ethan shook his head. "No, you did." "No," Ethan replied. "I just did my job." Varric smiled. That answer sounded exactly like something a human would say. The engineer leaned against the railing. "Then what makes humans different?" Ethan thought about it. The question had followed humanity since joining the stars. Many believed it was intelligence. Others believed it was courage. Some thought it was adaptability. But Ethan knew the answer. It isn't strength. It isn't technology. It isn't being smarter. Varric waited. Ethan looked toward the stars, then finally spoke. "When everyone else gives up, humans usually try one more time." The words hung in the air. Simple words. Yet they explained everything. CPR, or Ion 7. Every impossible survival. Every desperate rescue. One more try. One more chance. One more fight. That was humanity's forgotten strength. And now the entire galaxy knew it. Far above the capital world, countless stars shined in the darkness. Among them traveled millions of people. Different species. Different worlds. Different cultures. Yet because one human refused to quit, countless future lives would be saved. And for generations to come, doctors would remember the story. The story of a crewman who was dead for 3 minutes, and the human who refused to let him stay that way.